Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy June 8th to you. We are so glad you are here. It is 12 o'clock, so we are going to get started. And before we start, we would like to know who is here. So you should see in a moment, we're going to launch a poll. Go ahead and respond to this poll, please. All right, a lot of ESL instructors. Give you a couple more seconds to respond. Okay. So I want to close the poll and share with you. We have a lot of ESL instructors present today and instructional specialists. We also have ABE instructors and program administrators. So thank you for being here. We are excited to share today, and let me share my screen here. And we will get started. Bayo?
Hello, everyone. My name is Bayo Adetunji. I'm an education program specialist at the Maryland Department of Labor. Welcome to our presentation on implementing digital literacy. And I would like my colleague that I will be co-presenting with today to introduce herself.
So I did introduce myself earlier. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Harris. I'm also an education program specialist at the Maryland Department of Labor, and Bayo and I are colleagues.
All right. Essentially today, our goal is to share the digital literacy implementation guide that we have prepared for instructors. Since the digital literacy framework was launched in 2019, one of the things that we had always wanted to do was to work on an implementation guide. And that was one of the questions that the participants, those who participated in developing the framework also asked, how are instructors, how will they be able to use this framework in the field? So our goal today is to launch this guide. Next slide, please. What is digital literacy? It's important essentially to address the subject matter. If you do a search on digital literacy, a whole lot of definitions will come up. And perhaps it's not so important. The definition that we adopted that we're looking at is important, but it's important for us to be able to agree on what the term means. It means essentially different things to different people depending on what their needs are or depending on the context. There's so many definitions depending on whom you ask. But the definition that we're looking at today kind of is the one that was adopted by the International Museum and Library Sciences. It is the same definition that is also adopted by the American Library Association and WIOA, the Workforce Innovations and Opportunity Act. What's really important that I wanted to point out about this definition is that it touches on the important elements of digital literacy. The ability to find, to evaluate, organize, create, and communicate effectively. You would realize that it does not essentially focus on the know-how, on being able to use a specific platform, but it kind of emphasizes both the technical and the cognitive skills, not just the functional technology skills that people need. Next slide, please. Why digital literacy? I actually was thinking that instead of me asking this question, I should throw it out to the audience. I think you are in a better situation to answer this question than me, essentially. So in your chat box, if you want to just kind of tell us what, why is it important to, to be digitally literate? Why is this even something that we are talking about?
If you are unfamiliar with this platform, you will find the chat box on the right. There's a drop-down arrow, and you should be able to put in the chat comments in the chat there. All right, thanks for your contributions. Bayo, let's keep going with the definitions.
Okay. So, the why of Jamie, did you see the information in the chat box that I added to? So why digital literacy? I did ask for input for individuals to indicate why it is important for adult learners to be digitally literate. We all know that even pre-COVID-19, we know that being digitally literate is no longer an option. From what we need in our employment, from what we need in life, or from what we need even in our personal lives, it's important to be digitally literate. It's, it's the other day I actually had a meeting, during COVID-19. I had a doctor's visit where essentially, ordinarily, I would have gone to the doctor's office. But all I did, I received a phone call from the doctor's office scheduling me for a virtual meeting. So the intake was done actually by phone, asking the questions that they would have asked me if I were to be there in person. And also the intake person asked me on the phone if I knew how to use Zoom. I said, of course, I use Zoom. So they advised me to be on the call 10 minutes before. And when I arrived at, when I logged in, I clicked on the link that was sent to me, and I realized that it was a different platform that the doctor actually was using. So I didn't know where the microphone button was. The physician already had a card, that he kind of placed on there. The microphone button is below, that sort of thing. So I didn't have to drive to the doctor's office to see the doctor. The only thing that I have not been able to come up with is how to do blood work. But I was able to do the doctor, to have a doctor's visit.
So Bayo, we do have some responses, and I guess I could read a couple of them.
Okay, sure.
This is a great tool to teach students who are unable to attend classes in person. The need to communicate in today's modern world, from Sarah. Joy put all instruction is currently online, exclamation point, exclamation point. We have Beth that said, it is the world we live in. And we have digital literacy is more innovative and motivating. For times like these that we're living in, everything's going online, and responses continue. Thank you guys for responding.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty reading the chat box. Sorry about that. So the need for digital literacy is not something that, it's not even a question that we need to be asking, essentially. We know that it's part of our everyday lives, it's part of adult education. And we also know that our instructors have been integrating digital literacy into instruction, even before the digital literacy framework was launched, and even before this guide was implemented. So that takes us to the next slide, please. Just kind of, let's take a look at the timeline. As I alluded to earlier, in 2004, the Maryland Technology Standards was initiated. Some of us are familiar with these standards, and you realize that if a technology standard, if a manual or guidance on digital literacy was developed in 2004, it probably needs some updates, essentially. So in 2019, a work group was instituted essentially to kind of brainstorm ideas for a digital literacy framework. And in the same year, in 2019, the digital literacy framework was launched. The framework itself, as the name implies, is a conceptual framework. It doesn't touch on, the question that some of our instructors have about how do we use this in the classroom. So it basically kind of identifies the elements that we would kind of talk about later, but it doesn't go into detail about what maybe instructors actually need. It just kind of provides structure and a definition, and kind of focuses on the need for adult learners to become digitally literate. So in April 2020, just a few months ago, the digital literacy project was initiated, also to kind of brainstorm and develop ideas for an instructor implementation guide. And in June 2020, the implementation guide was launched. That's what we are actually launching and introducing to you today. The instructor implementation guide that Jamie will be talking about later on, essentially, it's not, the intention is not to kind of add more to what our instructors are already doing, not something else to do. Essentially, the implementation guide is kind of focuses on lesson activities that the instructor will find useful in the classroom. And here's the digital literacy framework with the 7 interconnected elements that we have identified. The elements that we have identified in the framework, they are not sort of linear or anything where one is more important than the other. As you would see later on, that they're interconnected. It's almost difficult to have one without the other. So you have the technical, the civic, communicative, collaborative, computational, thinking, investigative, and productive. Let's see if we'll be able to play the audio. The evolution of digital technology has altered the pattern of human interactions at various levels in profound ways that we can no longer ignore. Digital technology has implications for adult literacy. Therefore, the role of adult education programs in addressing digital literacy is pivotal.
Maryland Adult Education has begun the work of addressing digital literacy by developing a digital literacy framework for adult learners. The digital literacy framework for adult learners includes 7 interconnected elements. Each element includes a definition, guiding questions, a description, and situational examples.
The technical elements in digital literacy consist of foundational physical skills, which are necessary for the acquisition of digital literacy. They include powering on and off devices, accessing tools and applications on devices. The civic elements in digital literacy is similar to the idea of traditional citizenship, where individual participants have rights and responsibilities that need to be respected. Several aspects include online safety, building identity, managing reputation, etiquette, and participation.
The communicative element in digital literacy enables the individual to access and share a variety of digital resources and materials with others using various platforms. This element, the collaborative element, provides opportunities for individuals to work together in real time or at their own pace to achieve common goals. The collaborative element includes teamwork, problem solving, expanding horizons, and being engaged.
The computational thinking element allows an individual to leverage digital media and technology to solve a problem. Adult learners can utilize technology to simulate complex situations to determine potential outcomes. The investigative element is the ability to search, identify, and validate information. These skills help an individual to make meaning from information and identify reliable and relevant sources.
The last element of the digital literacy framework is the productive element. This element highlights participation in the digital environment by means of curation and content creation.
So that video summarized the digital literacy framework. And if you have not seen the digital literacy framework, there is a link in the chat box and it will take you straight to the document. And that's the document that Bayo has already mentioned that was developed in 2019, just last year. So you are here now to find out how to implement digital literacy. It's online, all classes are online. Digital literacy is required. And while the framework is general, as Bayo had mentioned, we need some more help when it comes to instructor implementation. Before we jump into actually looking at a couple areas of the framework, we did want to acknowledge and say thank you, huge thank yous to those who you see on the screen now. These are instructors, transition specialists in the field who have contributed some of their lesson activities that they've done in the classroom and supported the work of the digital literacy framework instructor implementation guide. So thank you so much for those who contributed. So what does this instructor implementation guide look like? It has two parts currently, and just so you know, it's in development, but there are two parts. And part one are lesson activities. And these lesson activities, you will see the following included information. So we have the title, learning objectives, materials needed, instructions, extension activities, and even cautions, things that instructors saw that someone else would need to know before they implement that lesson activity. You should note that they are not lesson plans, but they are lesson activities because we focus on integrating technology into the current context. And so while you have a lesson plan for the entire class period, or 2 hours, 3 hours, what we've done is we've taken activities that can fit within the lesson plan. Part two is a curation of existing resources. So there are so many resources that are fantastic on the web. And what we've done is we've looked at different resources and tried to provide descriptions and web links for those resources to help support instructors, not only for instruction in the classroom, but to help with the professional development of the instructor as they try and work through all the digital literacy skills that are needed. So we're going to take a moment. I'm going to show you a couple areas of the instructor implementation guide. We will not be looking at the entire document right now. But give me a moment. I'm going to share my screen and let you guys see the instructor implementation guide. Okay, so you should see a document on your screen. And what we're going to show you is what a lesson activity looks like. So here is one that we have. Its focus is on language learning. This one's called Errands Made Easy with Google Lens. You will see, and just so you know, the format of all the lesson activities look like this. So there are objectives. You will also see competencies and standards that relate to the lesson activity. In this particular case, you see CASAS competencies, but in other lesson activities for ABE, for example, you may see some TABE correlations. And so for others, you will see some CCRS correlations. So depending on the lesson activity, it will determine what competencies and standards are listed. You will also see a list of materials and resources needed for the lesson activity. All of the lesson activities we tried to fit to 3 pages each, which is quite a feat, but each lesson activity will be on 3 pages. So on the second page, you will see pre-teaching, what you need to do before you start teaching this activity or starting this activity, what you need to write on the board or what you need to write on a whiteboard if you're working in a digital space like distance education. What do you need to do before the activity begins? That's what you will see here. Then you have instructions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and etc. of how you need to work through presenting this lesson activity. Remember, this came from an instructor, and so the instructor was able to outline steps needed for this to be a successful activity. Afterwards, for some of the lessons, you will see a wrap up, kind of how to finish up that activity. And then on the third page, you will see two things. You will see extension activities. How can you take this activity and extend it beyond? What you may also see here as well is while this particular lesson activity focuses on language learning, this activity can be used maybe when you talk about math. And so what you will tend to see in some of these lesson activities is how it can be extended beyond the context in which the instructor implemented this activity. And then you will see key observations. In this particular lesson activity, you see how much time it may take. Some 30 minutes, others 2 hours, it depends. In this one, you also see what equipment is needed and maybe some cautions and some information you need to know regarding equipment. And in this particular one, it tells you what realia you may need and explains kind of some of the things you may need to do prior to starting the class, or excuse me, before starting the activity so that this is successful. So this is an example of one of the lesson activities. We have over 40 in our instructor implementation guide. And the beauty of it is while it was used in one context, a lot of them can be changed for a different context. For example, if it's research for writing, maybe it can be changed and adapted for reading. The other area of note here is everyone is working in distance education right now. For some, it's changing a little bit. There's some in person and some online, but most of us are online. And for some of the activities, you may see a section that says distance education, but the idea is you are given something that you can morph for your context. And so if you're online and the activity says to write something on the board, maybe instead of writing it on the board, you're writing it on the whiteboard of Zoom, or you're putting it in a shareable document on Google instead of writing it on the whiteboard. So just make those, consider those things in your current context. Something else we wanted to show you is an example of what curated resources will look like. The element has 7 interconnected elements, and so the second part will be divided by the elements. So there will be 7 different sections, and this is kind of what it may look like. It will outline a resource, and then it will have a, oh, I'm sorry. I just clicked somewhere else and I did not mean to. So you will find out that all of these links are clickable, which is what I just did. It has the resource, it has a description, and it has the link specifically related to the element that you see on the screen. This is an example of what the technical element will look like. And these are examples of the curated resources that you will see. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this. And I'm going to go back to the presentation. Just give me one moment. It's taking a moment to load. Forgive me. Okay. Bayo, can you confirm that you can see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so now that we've gone over the guide, I'm going to turn it over to Bayo.
Okay. So we're going to get some input from you regarding the information that we have just shared about the Digital Literacy Implementation Guide. To see if you have any questions for us, we would be using Poll Everywhere to solicit that input from you. Essentially, there are two ways. Most of us are familiar with Poll Everywhere, pretty simple. There are two ways to respond, to participate. You either respond by going to the web address that you see on the screen, pollev.com/JamieHarris229, or you can use your your phone, text to Jamie Harris 229 to 2233, and once you join, you text your message. The first question, do you have any questions about the guide, about the implementation guide that Jamie has just shared?
I have to make an adjustment here.
Okay.
All right, so as you type everything in, again, you can text or you can go to the website. It'll allow us to see what you're typing, which is nice because we can engage in the situations like this. And as you type it in, we will see it on our side as well. While we wait for you to type into Poll Everywhere, I see here, Sarah has asked, is there a page in the digital literacy framework that has correlations to life skills or employment skills, so it's easy to find a digital literacy lesson that fits with completing an online job application, for example? Sarah, great question. So in the digital literacy framework itself, it's general, but in the instructor implementation guide that we're speaking of today, we do have some lesson activities that are connected to college and career readiness, that are connected to employment. And so to answer your question, yes, there are correlations to employment. Now, will we divide it by life skills versus employment? It will not be divided exactly like that, but it will have information for employment. Okay. Veronica, will the instructors have access to the Absolutely, Veronica, you will have access to the implementation guide. We have made it for instructors. Just so you understand the timeline, the aim is for it to be finished by the end of June. It's being developed currently, and once it becomes available, we will spread it far and wide for you to use. All right, Julia asked, can you download and print a hard copy of the instructor implementation guide? When it is available, it will be digital, and so yes, you can download it and print it as needed. When it's digital, it tends to be easier, especially for searching, and right now we're not distributing anything by hand, really, right? Everything's digital, so that's how we will distribute it. Does the guide cover both ESL, ABE, and GED? Yes, yes, yes. It is not only ESL focused. That was a great question. It has ABE lessons and it has ASE, Adult Secondary Education, or pre-GED lessons in it, lesson activities as well. Are the lessons meeting the needs of all levels of ESL learners? Great questions, guys. When we reached out to instructors in the field, we made sure to include lesson activities of all levels, all ESL levels and all ABE levels. And some of the activities are multi-level, like the instructor teaches in a multi-level setting, and so that's how they presented the information. Bayo, did you want to read some of these questions here on the screen? Can you see them?
It's training my eyes to see. Actually have to take a.
Okay, well, I'll continue and just let me know when you're ready.
All right. Did you read, will there be filters to apply so that you can locate exactly what you want? Or is it like an ebook format?
So the hope is with the table of contents, we are able to bookmark it. So when you click on an area, it will take you straight to that section. But I think what the best route would be to do a search. But we will make sure to make it as accessible as possible, and that would include tags and things like that to help find information in the document.
Okay, that's the last question. Okay, there's another one. I'm sorry if you already answered this question. Where exactly can the guide be accessed?
We did not answer that question yet. So we will have it available. It will be via email. And for the Virtual Training Institute, we tend to have resources available like recordings of sessions and handouts, and we'll try and put it there as well. And we'll hope to put it on the Maryland Department of Labor website.
Okay. What time frame are most of the activities?
It's a range. So some of them are 20-minute activities, some of them are 2-hour activities. There is one activity that's in there that is it's over a period of time. And if you're familiar with digital storytelling, that is the tool. And so it cannot be done in 20 minutes. So there is a range of time frames for the activities in this guide.
Okay, another question. This would be an amazing resource. Would this be a work in progress, adding activities, something like that? You may have answered, but I was having trouble getting on the poll. Sorry about that.
We're glad you made it to the poll. This is the beginning. I think it's going to be, I hope that over the years we can continue to add to this instructor implementation guide. As we mentioned, we have over 40 activities at the moment, but the reality is as we teach in a distance learning format, there will be more activities that come to mind. So we hope to expand it to grow, but right now we're focused on getting the first final document for distribution. We have a question in the chat
there's another
box.
question. All right.
We have computers at some of our ESL class locations, but not all. Are there also lessons that perhaps use smartphones and not computers? Yes, there are some lessons that are app specific. Mobile learning is key now. And so not everything needs to happen on a computer. In this instructor implementation guide, it also has mobile learning as a factor. Okay, so what was sent in the chat was the digital literacy framework that was developed in 2019. It's the general framework for digital literacy. It defines what digital literacy is. What we're talking about right now is a supplement to the initial framework. It's the instructor implementation guide. So it goes with the initial framework, but it's more detailed. It's not just as general as the original framework. All right, Bayo, we're going to go on to the next question.
Okay.
I think.
Ready? So the next question, how can this guide help you with instruction?
So the hope is as you were listening to us chat and talk, you had some ideas of how this can help you with instruction. We are also open. I think the next question allows you to share ideas that you have with us. So you can put that here or on the next question we have. Jeannie, nice to see you again as well. So glad you're here. Sarah has said, I'm hoping it can help a lot and give some concrete ideas of how to integrate technology into instruction, as well as making those digital literacy skills explicit. Sarah, that is such a great comment. That's the point. We need some concrete examples. I mean, we have a framework, and the framework actually adds some definition because of this term digital literacy all the time. The framework adds some definition, but now in the classroom, what does that look like? So fantastic comment.
Okay, there's a comment here that I would like to read.
Sure.
It says, it can give us immediate resources to put into practice with our students. That's very appropriate. There's a question here. Are the sections of the guide sectioned off by subjects?
That's a great question. So as Bayo and I have been working on this document, we have been trying to figure out the best way to divide these activities. Remember, it's integrating technology into your current context. So we have considered it reading, writing, math. What did I forget? Reading, writing, and math. Oh, and language learning. We've considered separating that way, but you'll get our contact information at the end of this presentation. If you have some suggestions, we are open. We want it to be as user-friendly as possible.
Okay. And there's some additional comments. Provide activities for instructors to correlate to framework and actual needs of students. I believe that this will provide more opportunities for teachers not to reinvent the wheel resources. Also, it can give us immediate resources to put into practice with our students. Teachers need resources that are easy to digest and quick to implement. This will save us time and boost our creativity. Great ideas.
Yes. I love the comment that says it can get overwhelming to look at all the resources out there. It would be great to have some specific examples. I know I love technology, but it's been a little overwhelming. There's so much available. So yes, we want to try and help you and support you and not creating burnout or being too overwhelmed. And so this guide should help you in that way.
And I was going to say as well that the idea about the implementation guide is not for you to abandon your lesson objectives. They are essentially lesson activities to reinforce the lesson objectives you're trying to teach to your students.
I'm excited to expand my knowledge on all the components of digital literacy. Sometimes we get stuck in one. Oh, so well said. I wish I knew who said that. We tend as instructors to stick to the things we know. But the reality is if we are not touching on the investigative element, sometimes known as information literacy, that creates a gap for our students. So we are trying to help you expand what you do in your class. So thanks so much for that comment. And yes, the framework, low-level learners also need digital literacy skills. So again, we provide lesson activities for the range of ESL 1 to 6, ABE 1 to 6. Please know though that if there's a lesson activity for ABE 3, that you can still adjust it so it can fit ABE 2. Don't get stuck on what the initial level of that lesson activity. Make sure to think about it and see if it can be adapted for your levels. All right. Thank you, Veronica, for your comment. You love it because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's a wonderful jumping point. We're glad that this can help you. And yeah, it's a jumping point, off point. There's more, but it can give you an idea of where to start. All right, Bayo, I'm going to go to the next one here.
Okay, the next question here, you do have an opportunity. Actually, it's not a question, but you do have an opportunity to share other resources that you've used. We know that our instructors have been integrating digital literacy. They have been providing instruction on digital literacy over the years at various levels. So here's an opportunity to share resources that have been helpful.
Khan Academy. I've used Khan Academy in my upper level English language learning classes, English language acquisition classes. I've used that for some of their topics on science and literature. Okay, Burlington English. Oh, so I'm so glad you guys have put this here. It's important to note that in the Instructor Implementation Guide, we stayed away from specific vendors. We want this guide to be something that is good today and good 3 years from now. So while we know that Burlington English and GD Academy and Khan Academy are great, we've also kept in mind that everything is not in existence forever. And so we wanted to provide activities that are not too vendor specific. Oh, there's a link. Thank you so much for engaging with us. It's so much better to see you guys instead of us just talking. Newsella. For those of you who are not familiar with Newsella, it's great for reading. It's adaptable by level, and so you can have students reading the same story, but at different levels. ReadWorks. ReadWorks is also reading, and it's great. They have articles a day, and it comes with reading and comprehension questions that go along with the reading passage. Symbaloo. I have to look into that. Games to learn English. Learn to earn toolkit. This is good stuff. Thank you guys. Any other resources? In the chat box, the question box, I see reapworld.org specifically for computer skills practice. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, you've also asked about if we can compile these resources so that you can get it afterwards. Well, what you're putting here, maybe we can add to the Instructor Implementation Guide. We'll see if they're already in there, and if they're not, if there's a way to make it work. North Star is in there, guys. I see North Star. We have some North Star resources in there. Office Suite. ESL Library. Learning upgrades. New digital literacy course. Oh, okay. Thanks for sharing that. All things Google. We are using Google Slides right now for this presentation, so we understand. All right, Nuna put CNN 10. We'll have to look at that. All right. Oh, TEDx. Oh, wow. Yes. TEDx for educators. Thank you guys so much for your contributions here. We are doing this to support instructors. I still teach. I'm an education program specialist, but I continue to teach so that I'm always in the field and not forgetting what it's like. And so I know that support for instructors is needed. We have so much to accomplish, and the more support we get, the better. Brain Pop, Kahoot, Quizlet. Thank you. Rachel, nice to see you here. Okay. Thank you guys for sharing. So that's all we had to share. Bayo, did you want to share anything before I close us out?
Nothing else, just to thank everyone for spending this time with us. Maybe my closing comments would be that building digital literacy skills, sometimes it's a journey. It's not an end point that anybody can actually claim to have arrived at, where I'm at the end point, because the needs are equally constantly changing. So, and it's kind of based on the context as well. So you're all welcome, to, in this journey as we build our digital literacy skills and as we also equip our learners, and equip them for success in the workplace and in life. Thank you.
And so I echo that, Bayo. It's constant. So I love technology. I'm pretty tech savvy, but I'm always learning and I'm always working on my digital literacy skills. And so it's a journey, and you have to be willing to try. You have to be willing to try. It's okay if you make a mistake and you just pick up and you try again, and that's how you get better. So in the chat box, you will see two things. You will see a link for feedback. So please complete that survey. That would be very helpful for us to know how this can be better improved, or if you were okay with everything that was presented. Also, you'll see proof of participation. If you plan on attending multiple sessions during the Virtual Training Institute, please fill out the proof of participation after you've gone through all of them, because it's one form. And that way, the host, Gina Davis, won't have to send 5 different proof of participations at different times. So thank you for being here. Really honored that you would spend some time with us. There's so much going on right now. We hope that everyone is safe and healthy, taking care of themselves emotionally as well as physically during all of what's going on. Reach out to us if you have any other questions or suggestions, and we are very grateful. Thank you for being here. And that ends our presentation.
Thank you, everyone.